Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell y'all something right off the bat. Life will whoop you, then ask you why you crying. Let me tell you something people don't always want to hear. The best lessons in life don't come with a diploma. They don't come wrapped in a pretty package or with some inspirational music playing in the background. No, sir, real wisdom, that stuff is forged in the fire. It comes from falling flat on your behind, getting up with bruises on your ego, and walking away with a new kind of knowing. See, when you're young, or even just inexperienced, you think you know everything. You walk into rooms like the world owes you something, and then life, oh life has a funny way of correcting that attitude real quick. Life don't raise its voice, it don't argue with you. It just hands you a situation that humbles you so thoroughly, you start questioning your own brain. You ever been so wrong about something that even your thoughts start doubting each other? That's when the learning begins. Now let me paint a picture. You get your first job, you feeling grown, you cash that first paycheck, and suddenly you think you're rich. So what do? You go out, you spend half your money on stuff you don't need, trying to impress people you barely like. You're flossing with a new pair of shoes, eating out 5 days a week, living like there's no tomorrow, until tomorrow shows up. And it shows up with rent due, bills unpaid, and your checking account looking like it's been on a hunger strike. Then you're in the store trying to buy toothpaste and that little card reader says, declined. That's when the wisdom shows up, tap you on the shoulder and goes, told you so. You don't learn how to budget from a spreadsheet. You learn it from being broke and embarrassed, from calling your mama like, hey, you busy, and hoping she don't ask no questions when she cash apps you $20. That moment of shame, that moment when you realize fun ain't free, that's a better teacher than any finance class you ever took. And relationships, phew, that's a whole college course by itself. See, love will fool you. It'll walk up smelling good, looking good, saying all the right things, and next thing you know, you giving somebody your heart like it's a free sample at Costco. But when it falls apart, and oh, sometimes it will, you don't walk away empty. No, you walk away with a little scar and a whole lot of clarity. You start seeing the red flags you ignored. You start hearing the warnings you brushed off. You remember that cousin who pulled you to the side and said, I don't trust them, and you start wishing you listened. That's life teaching you. Life is patient, but it's persistent. It will keep sending you the same lesson in different clothes until you finally get the message. You can keep dating the same type of person over and over, thinking it'll end different this time, until you realize you the common denominator. That's not a diss, that's a discovery. That's wisdom saying, all right now, time to grow up. And don't even get me started on failure. See, failure got a bad reputation like it's the end of something, but really, failure is a beginning. Every time you mess up, you're one step closer to figuring it out. You start a business and it flops. Yeah, it hurts. But you learn what not to do. You start to see the cracks in your plan, the holes in your strategy, the people who are only around for the spotlight. You get smarter, you get stronger, you get seasoned. And let me tell you, a seasoned person is dangerous in the best way. They done been through it, and now they know better. And here's the thing about experience, it can't be rushed. You can read all the books, listen to all the podcasts, go to all the seminars, but some things, you gotta live them, you gotta feel them, you gotta have your heart broken, your pride dented, your confidence shaken before you can say, I truly understand. Wisdom ain't loud, it's that quiet voice in the back of your head that says, don't do that again. It's the voice that reminds you, last time you skipped preparation, it didn't go well. It's the calm that comes from surviving the storm, not avoiding it. Now let's be real, experience is expensive. It costs time, money, energy, and sometimes even your peace. But the return on investment, priceless, because once you've learned something for yourself, nobody can take that away from you. You don't have to prove it with credentials. Your walk says it all. The way you carry yourself, the decisions you make, the wisdom in your words, it all comes from what you've been through. You start spotting trouble before it even knocks. You don't chase what you used to chase. You don't argue like you used to. You learn that silence is sometimes the loudest response. You learn to pick your battles, save your energy, and protect your peace like it's gold. And over time, you start to appreciate the hard moments. You start saying things like, "I'm glad that didn't work out," or "Thank God I didn't end up with that job or that person." That's when you know you've graduated, not from school, but from a season in life. You learned the lesson, and now you walk with wisdom and a little bit of a smile, because you remember what it took to get here and you ain't going back. So next time life hands you a mess, don't panic. Pay attention. That mess might be your best teacher. Don't run from the pain. Learn from it. Don't waste the failure. Study it. That's how you grow. That's how you get that real, deep, soul-rooted wisdom that don't shake in the wind. And if you can walk away from it with a laugh, even better. That's wisdom, with a wink. Let me tell you something most folks don't realize until life knocks the wind out of them. If you can't laugh, you might not make it. Life is gonna hit you. It's gonna blindside you. It's gonna embarrass you in public, and sometimes in front of people you were trying to impress. But if you can find a little humor in the chaos, if you can smile through the mess, even just a little, then, baby, you've got power most people don't understand. Growth is painful. That's just the truth. It's not cute. It's not graceful. It's not Instagram worthy. It's late nights wondering if you made the right decision. It's being broke and pretending you're fine. It's crying in your car before you walk into work with a fake smile. That kind of growth, it hurts. But if somewhere in the middle of all that you can throw your head back and laugh, even a bitter laugh, even a laugh with tears in your eyes, that's when healing starts to sneak in. See, humor don't mean you're ignoring the problem. It just means you're not letting the problem own you. You ever been in a situation so ridiculous all you could do was laugh? That's life teaching you not to take everything so personally. Because if you carry every little thing like a personal attack, you're gonna stay tired and mad and bitter. And we don't need no more bitter people walking around sucking the joy out of the room. Let me give you an example. Say you're late for an interview. You already stressed, trying to make it on time, and boom, your car won't start. You get a jump, finally get on the road, hit every red light known to man, and just when you think it can't get worse, you spill coffee on your shirt. Now, you could cry, you could lose it, but if you can look at that mess, look at yourself in the rear-view mirror and say, you know what, if today had a soundtrack, it'd be a comedy, then you've just taken the first step toward bouncing back. That ability to laugh at the madness is what keeps you going. It's your emotional insurance, because life is gonna keep throwing punches. That's a guarantee. What you do in between the punches, though, that's what defines you, and humor, especially when you're going through it, is like your secret weapon. It don't stop the storm, but it sure helps you dance in the rain. Some people think maturity means being serious all the time. No, maturity is knowing when to be serious, and knowing when to crack a joke so you don't crack under pressure. That's why some of the wisest people you'll ever meet are also the funniest. Old folks don't just talk in riddles and sayings for no reason. They learned long ago that if you want to teach people something real, you gotta wrap it in a story, lace it with a little humor, and hit 'em with the truth when they least expect it. Now let's talk about how humor helps you grow. You ever mess up so bad at work or in your business that it felt like the end? You're overthinking everything, replaying the moment in your head like a bad movie, thinking, well, guess that's it for me. But give it a few days, maybe a week. One day, you're telling somebody the story, and y'all are both howling with laughter. Same moment that had you spiraling now got you wheezing with joy. That's growth. Not because the moment got easier, but because you got stronger. You added a laugh track to your life, and that track keeps you from going off the rails, and humor's got another gift too. It connects people. You can walk into a room full of strangers, crack one good joke, and suddenly you're not alone anymore. It breaks down walls, builds bridges, and when you're going through something tough, a little laughter from a friend, a co-worker, or even a stranger can remind you, hey, you're human, you're gonna be all right. That's why shared laughter hits different. It's like a handshake from the soul. It says, we've both seen some mess and we're still here. Some of the funniest people I know have been through hell and back. That's why they're funny, because once you've cried enough, you figure, well, I might as well laugh too. It don't mean you're ignoring your pain. It means you're refusing to let it rule you. You're turning pain into punchlines, tragedy into testimony. That's powerful, and you know what else humor does. It resets the room. You ever been in a tense situation, everybody walking on eggshells, and somebody hits a well-timed joke, just like that the air changes, shoulders drop, people breathe again. That's not just comedy, that's healing. That's spiritual CPR. Now don't get me wrong. I'm not saying laugh instead of dealing with things. Nah, you gotta process your pain, feel it, work through it. But while you're doing all that hard inner work, if you can find even a tiny moment of lightness, a moment where your soul can smile, that's a moment of rest, that's grace, that's your body and your spirit saying, we're gonna make it. I've laughed at some of the worst moments in my life, not because they were funny when they happened, but because looking back I survived, and that survival came with stories. Stories that now make people laugh, make people feel seen, make people realize they're not alone in the struggle. That's the gift. When you turn your breakdown into a comedy sketch, you just might give someone else the strength to hang in there a little longer. So keep growing, keep grinding, keep becoming the person you're meant to be. But don't forget to laugh. Laugh at the awkward moments. Laugh at your past self. Laugh when things go left, because when you can laugh, you're not broken. You're rebuilding, and when you're rebuilding with joy, that's a kind of strength nobody can take from you. And who knows, maybe one day, the story you're crying through now will be the same one you're laughing about at a dinner table, surrounded by people who get it. That's the magic of humor. That's the beauty of wisdom with a wink. Let me tell you something that'll save you a whole lot of trouble in this life. Listen to people who have been where you're trying to go. The folks who have walked through the fire and came out singed but standing, they got something to say. They ain't always got degrees, fancy titles, or blue check marks, but they got battle scars, and baby, scars tell the real story. Now, I know how it is, especially when you're young or feeling like you've finally figured out who you are. You start tuning people out. You think they don't get it. Times have changed. I'm different, and I get it. We all want to feel unique. But here's the catch. Human nature hasn't changed. Technology got faster, clothes got tighter, but people still fall for the same old tricks. They still chase the wrong things, trust the wrong folks, and think they're smarter than time. And that's where the voices of experience come in. You ever had somebody older try to tell you something, and you brushed them off, only to find out months later they were spot on? It hits different when reality confirms what they already knew. Maybe your uncle told you not to lend money to that cousin who always just needs a little help. But you wanted to be the nice one, you believed them, and then, poof, money gone, cousin ghosted. Now your uncle just sipping his tea, shaking his head like MMMHMM. That's wisdom. And you ignored it because it didn't sound urgent. It sounded like nagging, but there's a thin line between nagging and knowledge when your pride's in the way. The problem is, wisdom don't always show up with lights and confetti. It shows up quiet, calm, and often wrapped in a sentence you've heard a dozen times before. That boy ain't right. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Start saving now, not later. Boring, right? Until the exact situation they warned you about pulls up in real life like surprise. That's when you hear those voices in your head clear as day, like they standing right next to you saying, I tried to tell you. Now, don't get me wrong, experience doesn't always mean someone is right. But it usually means they've seen more, fallen more, and learned more than you have. And if they're taking the time to pour into you, even if it's wrapped in tough love or old school sayings, it's because they care. That's the thing about folks with real wisdom. They don't always say what you want to hear, but they almost always say what you need to hear. You ever talk to a grandma who's lived through war, loss, love, poverty, and peace? She might not say 5 words, but when she does, every one of them hits like a sermon. She's not trying to impress you, she's trying to protect you. That kind of wisdom don't need a microphone, it whispers. And if you're too loud with your opinions, you might miss it completely. And sometimes it ain't even older people. Sometimes it's that quiet coworker who's been at the company for 20 years, knows how everything runs, and doesn't say much unless asked. But when they do speak, you better pay attention, or that friend who's made mistakes in life and is honest about them. They're not judging you. They're trying to hand you a shortcut they didn't have. One of the worst mistakes you can make is thinking you're the first person to go through something. You're not. Heartbreak been done, financial ruin, plenty of people have come back from worse, bad career decision, join the club, but you don't have to fall in every hole just because you're curious. Sometimes you can walk around it if you listen, but here's the tricky part. Listening takes humility. It means admitting you don't know everything, that your plan might not be perfect, that you need help. And let's be honest, most people don't like that. We want to be the hero of our own story, the one who figured it all out alone. But guess what? Even heroes need mentors. Even superheroes got somebody older and wiser guiding them behind the scenes. When you let go of pride and open your ears, you start to notice how many gems are being dropped around you every day. Like that guy who's been through divorce telling you, don't take your partner for granted. Or that woman who beat cancer saying, don't wait to start living fully. These aren't just quotes for social media. These are lived truths. You just gotta care enough to listen, and let me say this too. Sometimes the voice of experience comes from your own past. You ever repeat a mistake and say, man, I knew better? That's you not listening to your own wisdom. Your past self trying to warn your present self, and you treating it like spam mail. But you gotta respect your own growth too. If you've been through something before, you owe it to yourself to learn from it. Don't keep collecting lessons and refusing to read them. One of the best habits you can develop is asking questions. Ask people how they got where they are. Ask what they'd do differently. Ask what they wish they knew at your age, at your stage, at your moment. You'd be surprised how willing folks are to share, and it's not because they think they're better than you. It's because they want to see you win without having to lose like they did. It's not weakness to lean on someone else's experience. It's wisdom. You can go fast alone, but if you want to go far, you better start walking with some folks who have already made the journey. Let their hindsight be your foresight. Let their scars be your map. And when you finally get where you're going, you'll have the sense to turn around and pass that wisdom on to someone else, because one day you will be the voice of experience. You'll see someone walking toward the same cliff you nearly fell off, and you'll want to shout, hey, slow down, let me tell you what happened when I tried that. And whether they listen or not, you'll understand why the people before you tried so hard to talk sense into you. So the next time someone older, quieter, or wiser offers advice, pause, shut your mouth, open your ears, and listen. You just might hear the sentence that saves you from a whole season of struggle. There's something powerful about being honest. I'm talking about that no frills look you in the eye, let me tell you the truth even if it stings a little, kind of honesty. But let me tell you something else just as important. If you can deliver that honesty with a little grace, a little warmth, and maybe even a little laugh, you won't just be real, you'll be remembered. See, anybody can keep it real. But it takes wisdom to keep it real and keep it light. You ever meet somebody who prides themselves on telling it like it is, but all they really doing is running people down, dragging folks left and right, and calling it being real? That ain't real. That's just rude with a microphone. You don't gotta crush somebody to correct them. You don't need to slap a person with the truth when you can serve it to them like a warm meal. Now don't get me wrong. I'm all for speaking the truth. We need more truth in this world, no doubt. But the delivery, oh, that matters. That's the part people forget. You can have the best message in the world, but if your tone is off, your words will land wrong. It's like trying to give someone medicine by throwing the whole bottle at their head. Yeah, it might help them, but now they bleeding and offended. See, there's a balance you gotta find in life, a rhythm. You learn how to say you messed up without saying you're a mess. You learn how to give advice without sounding like a lecture. That's what wisdom with a wink is all about. It's about holding people accountable without holding them hostage to their mistakes. You can tell somebody you need to do better and still say it with love. That's how you build people instead of breaking them. I remember talking to a young man one time who kept messing up at work. Always late, always blaming other folks, always got an excuse. Now, I could have gone in on him. I could have laid out every failure in a long list and watched him squirm, but I didn't. I said, listen, I've been where you are. I used to think showing up late was no big deal. I used to think charm would cover laziness, but one day life tapped me on the shoulder and said, you're not as cute as you think you are, and talent don't excuse bad habits. And the boy laughed. Not a big laugh, but that kind of embarrassed, dang, that hit me kind of laugh. And you know what? That little laugh made space for him to hear me. If I had come at him full force, he would have shut down. But because I kept it real and kept it light, he leaned in, he listened. That's the secret right there. Humor opens ears, grace opens hearts. You want to help people grow, lighten the load, don't pile it on. Because life is already heavy enough. People out here carrying real pain, real stress. They don't need your truth to come with an extra dose of shame. They need truth that feels like a hand on their back, not a finger in their face. And that goes for how you talk to yourself too. Let's be honest, some of us are harder on ourselves than we'd ever be on anybody else. We beat ourselves up over every little mistake. We rehearse our failures in our heads like they on repeat. But what if, instead of dragging yourself, you gave yourself a little room to smile at your own foolishness? You ever look back at something dumb you did and just shake your head like, Lord, I really thought I was doing something? That's self-awareness, that's growth, that's you keeping it real, but keeping it light. You don't have to act like your past didn't happen. Just learn to laugh at it a little. Life is long, and you gon' mess up more than once. You might as well chuckle while you learn, because listen, nobody makes it out of this life without a blooper reel. You might have dated somebody who didn't even like you, just liked your car. You might have spent your rent money on a vacation thinking you'd figure it out later. You might have gotten fired from a job because you were too busy texting about how much you hate your job. All of that is real, but it's also life. If you can't laugh about it at some point, it's gonna weigh you down. Keeping it light don't mean being fake. It just means knowing that even serious things don't always need serious energy. Sometimes the most healing thing you can say to somebody is, yeah, that was dumb, but I've done worse. That kind of honesty is like a breath of fresh air. It doesn't shame, it relates, and when people feel related to, they open up. They start telling their truth too, and suddenly a little lightness made room for a lot of healing. Let me also say this, keeping it light is not about making jokes instead of facing life. It's about carrying the truth with grace, knowing when to add a smile, knowing when to diffuse a moment instead of detonating it. You can still have boundaries, you can still speak up, you can still say that ain't right. But if you can say it with a little twinkle in your eye instead of a scowl on your face, you might actually get through to somebody. You know who does this best, those people who've been through the most and somehow came out joyful. Not bitter, not hardened but light, not because life didn't break them, but because they chose not to stay broken. They tell their stories with humor and heart. They don't sugarcoat the pain, but they don't let it define the whole story either. That's strength, that's beauty, that's real power. So yes, keep it real. Say what needs to be said. Own your truth. Call things out. But don't forget to leave room for laughter, for mercy, for joy. Because wisdom without warmth is just noise. And truth without love is just judgment. But when you keep it real and keep it light, you don't just tell the truth. You teach it, you live it, and you leave people better than you found them. And if you can do all that with a smile, baby, you're doing something right.